Lonnie. And I'm Benika. We're twin sisters based in Virginia in the United States of America. And we are so excited to be here today teaching you guys about computer science. So without further ado, let's get started.
Today we're going to make another fun and easy game on Scratch. This time we'll create a Catch the Falling Objects game. It's a simple game where you control a character and your goal is to catch falling objects to score points. In this tutorial, we'll learn how to use variables to keep track of our score. Before we dive into building our game, let's talk about variables. In programming, a variable is like a container that holds a piece of information that can change over time. For example, in our game, we'll use a variable to store the player's score, which will increase as they catch falling objects. In Scratch, we create a variable by going to the Variables category and clicking Make a Variable. Once we have a variable, we can change its value or display it on the screen. Variables are great because they help us keep track of things like scores, time, or even the position of objects. In our game, we'll use a variable to track how many apples the player catches. Each time an apple is caught, we'll increase the score by 1. This is how we'll give feedback to the player and make the game more fun. Now that you understand variables, let's set up the game scene. We'll start with the backdrop. Click on the Choose a Backdrop button and select a simple one. For instance, I like the blue sky backdrop, but you can also choose one like the outdoor scene or whichever you like. Next, I'm going to delete the cat, and then I'm going to add a sprite that will catch the objects. Ooh, I really like the bow sprite. And feel free to choose something fun, like a bow like I did, or even a character sprite. So here's my sprite. So I'm going to call this object the bow, and this is the player-controlled character, which means that the player will be able to move the sprite and it will do the actual catching. Next, let's code for the movement for our bow. We'll make it so the player can move it left and right using arrow keys. Here's how. So make sure that your bow sprite is clicked. And now we're going to go to the Events panel, and you're going to drag the When Green Flag Clicked block and drag it onto your scripting area. Next, we're going to attach a Forever block, which is also in the Control category. The forever block will ensure that everything we code will act forever, so throughout the game, because we want everything that we code for to apply. Okay, and now it's actually the time to program the bell sprite so it moves left and right. So first we're going to add an if-then block, which is located in the control area, and just drag it and put it underneath the forever block. Okay, and now we're going to go to the sensing area and we're going to basically think about how to program the bell so it turns left. Okay, so inside the first if-then block, we're going to go to the sensing area and drag the block key space pressed. And if you see the drop down, click on it and press the left arrow. After, you can drag this into the if-then block. And so what we're doing is programming it so that when the user clicks the left arrow, the bow will move left. And so inside the if-then block, we're going to go to the motion department and we're gonna drag the move 10 steps. Except since we want the bow to move to the left, we're going to turn this into minus 10 steps. Because here's the negative area and here's the positive area. Okay, and now we're going to repeat this for the right arrow. So what you can do is right click, click duplicate, and just drag this block underneath the left arrow's press block. And then all we really have to do is change this to the right arrow and move this to the 10-step mark. And now we can test out if this coding segment actually works. So just click the green flag, and whenever you press your left arrow, it should go left, and when you press your right arrow, it'll go right. Notice how you can't move it anywhere except left or right, which is what we want. Now we can press the stop sign to move on. And there we have it. The player can now move the ball left and right with arrow keys. And here comes the fun part, adding falling objects. Let's create the falling objects that the player will catch. We'll make them fall from the top of the screen. So first we're going to click the Choose a Sprite button, and we're going to select an object, like an apple. You can also choose a ball if you'd like, or feel free to experiment. And so the apple will act as our falling item. So first, I can see that the apple is bigger than the ball, and I would want it to be smaller than the ball. So I'm going to change the size to 50. That's the size that I like. And so next, let's go to the events category again. We're going to drag the when the green flag is clicked block, and we're going to attach it to a forever block. Inside the forever block, we'll have the script needed to make the apple fall. But before we actually code into the forever block, I want the apple to first appear randomly and appear in a specific type of area. So so what I mean by this is I want the apple to appear randomly on the screen, but I want it to give the illusion of actually falling from the sky. So we want it to appear randomly from the top. So first we're going to go to the motion area, and we're going to get the go to random position block. Notice how I'm putting it in between the when green flag is clicked block and the forever blocked. Next, like I said, we want it to appear in a specific area. So we're going to set Y to 180. And all this block does is sets the Y value, and the Y value is just the height. And 180 is one of the parameters of the stage. So this is 180, here's negative 180, here's negative 240, and here's 240. So these are just ways we can describe where we want the sprite to be on the stage. Okay, and now you can test it out. When green flag is clicked, you can see that the apple is in a random position and it's on top. And if you keep clicking the green flag, you'll see that the apple is moving to random spots on the top, which is what we want. And now let's make the apple move so it gives the appearance of falling from the sky. So in the forever block, we want to put change Y by -10. And this will basically just make the apple start falling down. And as you can see when you click the green flag, the apple is falling down, which is exactly what we want. And so as you can see, when the apple fell down, it kind of looks like it's in an awkward position down here. We don't want the apple to just stay here. We want it so that when the apple reaches a certain point down on the ground, it'll just keep falling from the sky and kind of have loop format. And so I am going to go to the control panel and drag an if-then block and latch into the forever block. Now I'm going to go to the operator category, drag the equal block, and I'm going to go to motion, grab a Y position block, and I'll equate it to -175. And as I stated before, the bottom is -180, so I want it so that when the apple comes to close proximity to the bottom, then it will basically again go to random position on top. And so again, I'm going to drag a go to random position block and set Y to 180 block. 180. Okay, and now as you can see, when I press the green flag, the apple is falling and it's falling. And best of all, whenever it reaches the ground, it'll just continue. And so this means that the game can continue on rather than just stopping every time the apple falls. And so You can also move the bowl with your arrow keys, and you can start seeing the purpose and the functionality of this game. And so now what we want is whenever the apple touches the bowl sprite, there's sort of a sound that comes which confirms to the user that, yes, I have indeed caught the apple. And so now I'm going to show you how to code for that. And so go to the control compartment, drag the if then block, and then put it right underneath the if y position equals negative 170 block. And now you can go to the sensing area, click on the drop down, click bell, and then drag the touching bell block. And now you can go to sound and you can play the sound chomp until done. And feel free to experiment with different sounds. You can even make your own sound if you'd like. And so drag play sound chomp until done and drag it into the if touching bell area. And once the apple touches the bell, I want it so that it goes into a random position. So let's first test if the sound works. Yes, and as you can see, there's kind of an error in this program right now because as the apple goes down and touches the bowl, it'll just continue and you can hear multiple chomps. Just like that. And so how we can alleviate this bug is by again going to motion, dragging the go to random position block, and setting Y to 180. And so let's try that again. That is perfect. As you can see now, when the apple touches the bowl, it'll continue on with the game and it won't happen multiple times. And so, whenever the user is playing this game, you want it so that every time the apple goes into the bowl, they get a point, because that's what makes the game fun. And so, remember in the beginning of this tutorial how we explained the word variable to you? Well, now we will be showing you how to use it. So to make the game interactive, let's introduce a variable and name it score. So go to the variable category, click make a variable, and for the new variable's name, you can type score. Click OK, and now you have a variable. And as you can see, this checkbox will allow it to be presented on the screen. And so whenever the game starts, you want the score to start off as 0. Because if it started off at 50, for instance, that would be unfair. And so we are going to set the variable score to 0 and just drag it underneath the when flag clicked block. And by the way, everyone, setting a variable to 0 at first, or any starting value for that matter, that is called initialization. So that's a fun fact for you. Anyways, moving on. Like I previously said, if the apple will touch the bowl, we want the user to get a point. So we're going to change the score variable by 1. And so you can just feel free to drag it right over here on top of the play sound until done. And so let's see how it works. So as you can see, the score starts off as 0, and now whenever I'm getting the apple, the score is changing by 1. Now I have 4, now I have 5 points, now I have 6 points. Okay, so the variable is working perfectly. Okay, so that's the majority of the actual programming to make the Catch the Falling Objects in Scratch game. And so feel free to customize this game to suit your preferences because personalization is always a very fun aspect. For instance, you can experiment with different types of backdrops. Scratch has a lot of options of backdrops. Another thing I'd like to show you is I personally want to make it so the color of apple changes throughout the game. And so here's how I would do that for those of you who want to learn. So I'm going to drag the when flag clicked block. I'm going to drag the forever block because I want the apple's color to change throughout the game. Now I'm going to go to looks, And there's a block over here, change color effect by 25. And so I'm going to drag that into the forever block. Now I want the change to be more gradual, so I'm going to try with 3. And so whenever I click the green flag, as you can see, the apple color is changing and I'm very happy with how it looks. And that's how you create a catch the falling objects game in Scratch. You learned how to make the player move, how objects fall, how to detect collisions, and how to track scores using variables. If you like this tutorial, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments if you've made your own version of the game. See you next time, where we'll explore more fun Scratch projects. Happy coding!